to set down on the seafloor at a depth of 1,100 meters. It's taking me a little while to get going this morning.
We actually might be closer to 1,000 meters. Just approaching that now.
Yep, and we're very happy to see, or I'm very happy to see some rocks covered with sediments.
And don't forget,
yeah, it's been a few days since we've seen rocks. Our last few dives have been on coral mount features further east and west and south of where we are now. And we were planning to dive on some more features that might have been similar to that, but we keep getting pushed away by the Gulf Stream.
Excellent. Thank you
so
very
we chose
much
this
no
scarp feature further off the coast.
Yes, excuse me. So the current bailout that we're thinking is
a similar scarp feature runs a long way south of here. And so this is an interesting site to see what this scarp has to offer as far as habitat for corals and sponges, as well as geology. So hopefully we'll see a lot of everything today.
Absolutely, you can go for it.
Yeah, we're going to ascend a scarp face that has various slopes assigned to it from our multi-beam sonar mapping that we conducted earlier in the cruise and last night. This is a very long feature with, we are expecting to see potentially nearly vertical walls in places, but overall the slope is over 40 degrees and we'll be ascending over 100 meters in this dive. So we hope to see lots of different rock exposures.
It looks healthy right now, but we definitely need to keep an eye on
Cutthroat eel that we're looking at is looking at the seabed here, which you can see the rocks, but they're also heavily cemented with the fine-grained sediments that settle down from the water column. So this kind of habitat isn't very conducive for the corals and sponges because they need something nice and solid on which to attach. You can see a couple in the distance in the upper right, but not the abundant, dense communities that we might see had these sediments been absent from the scene. And we're expecting to see
watch these. As you can see, we're on bottom.
Lots of rocks on the ascent, and hopefully many that don't have the sediment cover and rocks that will provide good habitat.
Yeah, you can go for lights.
Oh, but it looks like a Bathypathes coral here on the left and a shrimp and swimming up into the water column. Oh, and another Bathypathes and possibly an associate with that one on the left. Looks promising,
yes.
That's for sure.
So one of our objectives is to be able to collect a rock at the base of this feature that we'll be climbing, and then hopefully one near the top if the rocks allow, because it's not always so easy to find one that fits in our basket and that is loose. Sometimes they look loose, but they're not. So once we get the ROV ready to roll, then we'll see if we can get a rock sample and be on our way up.
And maybe check out that Bathypathes with the, looks like a chirostylid squat lobster on top. Unless the Synaphobranchid eats it first. So Leslie, what would you say about the current here compared to other places given the higher drape of sediment?
Yes, we are definitely being protected from the powerful Gulf Stream that is at the surface by this scarp. We're in the lee of the current, and so it's nice and calm here. And how do we know that? Just not only from being an ROV, testing the waters, but also to see this drape of sediments. And we'll get a zoom in at some point and see if we can see lots of shell material. It looks a little finer than certainly what we saw on the tops of the mounds that was very coarse-grained, almost completely made of the shells of microorganisms. that most of which live in the surface waters, and when they die, their shells settle down to the sea floor. Likely that's what this is also comprised of, but smaller shells instead of the large ones. The smaller material has a chance to settle where the currents are lower. If we had stronger currents, these rock tops would be nice and cleaned off, and we'd have a lot more dense populations, I believe.
So pilot, I think, will the pilot brief you on everything?
Yeah.
What we need to watch?
Really?
We need to watch that tether.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, by fiber levels, there's no indication that there's any.
Yeah, it all wrong, looks visually looks good as well, from what we can see.
Yeah, go ahead, watch Lee.
But we'll have to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
So we see our first golden crab
we're gonna
under
get this
a ledge
coral real quick. This black coral.
in the distance, and we're going to check out this bathypathes with the chirostylid squat lobster on the top.
And then co-pilot, is Sirius moving south at all? Or lateral with layby?
You can come in video.
Hard
and if this is your first dive with us, you'll see our 10-centimeter measuring devices, 2 laser beams. Give us a sense of scale.
And I think that that's a gastroptychus on top of this bathypathes black coral.
And see how his bottom is tucked underneath. And you said that those are the last 2 legs modified?
Yeah, so they're decapod crustaceans, so they'll have 5 pairs of legs, but you'll only see 4 pair, and the last set is modified and tucked underneath. So these are relatives of hermit crabs, and all of that group, the anamurans, have that last pair of legs modified. And these chirostylids are often found on black corals. But we've seen a lot of bathypathes without an associated anamuran this cruise also. And we've seen bathypathes on many of the dives that we've had so far on this expedition. And by the way, my name is Cheryl Morrison. I'm from the U.S. Geological Survey at Leetown Science Center, and I am the biology science lead. And with me on my right.
Good morning, this is Leslie Sauter. I'm at the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina, and I am the geology lead for this expedition. And on our far left...
Hey, this is Stephanie Bush. I'm from the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, and I'm here just because I don't get to watch benthic dives very much, and I'm also the sample data manager out here.
Do we want to, do they say rock?
We've been keeping her busy with samples.
We'll not move ship.
On every dive, I think we've collected at least a couple of samples. Sometimes they're geology. Hopefully this time we'll have a mix of geology and biology samples. And we carefully collect samples that are representative of the dive site to make sure that we can properly identify the dominant taxa, or samples that are rare or possibly unknown to science, or range extensions. And then we also collect some samples for the Aspire program, which is looking at connectivity across the whole Atlantic, from these waters up to the north, including Canadian waters, and across to the northeast Atlantic.
Watch lead pilot.
Go ahead, pilot.
Does this rock look like something you would want? To the right.
Could you scan up just a little bit?
Yeah, video come out a little bit.
Is the one just at maybe 11 o'clock possible, or is that too large?
Big.
Too big?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this
it's a little more tabular. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's go for that one then.
Understood.
Trying to get the largest sample possible, of course.
You are ramped up and ready to go.
Thanks, Lars.
So the rocks that we have brought up to date, all of them have been sedimentary in nature. If you watched any of the Pacific dives, most of the rocks were likely volcanic in nature and origin. But these rocks are clearly part of sediment layers that have been buried, long buried, and if it doesn't fall apart, we would call it lithified, meaning that the grains are cemented together. Many of the rocks, however, that we have encountered when we tried to collect them, they were very friable, meaning they just crumbled. And some of them we've still been able to collect, and they do indeed fall apart. But we've been able to get a glimpse, at least, of what the sediments through time have been. If this is a nice solid rock, it'll be sent to Oregon State University to the archives, and they will produce what we call thin sections, which are, as the name implies, extremely thin sections of the rocks on slides so that we can have light transmit through them. And using polarized light, we use those thin sections to identify the mineral material in the rock itself. Different minerals have characteristic optical properties.
Copy that.
And that aids in their classification and full identification, not just saying in general that this is a sedimentary rock.
That's good. You can bring Mini Zeus up on the right monitor.
Good.
If you'd like.
And I suspect that even a rock like this will have many, many organisms living on top of it, even though we don't see them at this scale very much.
Yeah, we usually spend the first 15-20 minutes after a rock sample comes on board carefully looking at the rock surface and picking off all the biology that is using the rock surface to grow on. And I imagine people just saw that cutthroat eel, Synaphobranchid eel, swim by and kind of hit the bottom. Ken Sulak points out that that's a response of being blasted by the ROV lights. They probably get a bit confused. Because if we turn out the lights here, it is absolutely pitch black, and that's their usual state.
Looks like a perfect rock sample. And that looked easy, didn't it?
Yeah. Let's hope all the collections go that well.
Yes. Now these pilots are very skilled at making all of this work look easy, despite the fact that they are more than 1,000 meters above the seafloor.
Sounds good.
So we have our first collection of the day.
Thanks.
If we could take a quick zoom of that fish rat tail that's just a little bit above the camera, that would be wonderful.
Okay, go for rat tail right after this.
Switching back to Sirius's view.
That's good.
And Ken Sulak pointed out that he's seen ophidioids in the area hanging out, possibly
wow.
Decroleni.
Lots of fish here. It's great habitat with all these overhanging ledges. We saw a lot of these cutthroat eels in the coral rubble and within the dead skeletal framework of the old coral on the mounds too. So very adapted to living in a variety of environments.
Try to get the head of this one.
You can see some organisms growing on the underside, or the under edge of this rock that the eel is swimming past now.
And you get a sense of how fine-grained this material is. We would characterize this as mud. Believe it or not, that's a marine geology sedimentological term. And it is the combination of the finest grains of material, the clay-sized particles and the silt-sized particles. And in this case, if it's made of microfossil remains, we would actually go further and call it a calcareous ooze. So mud and ooze are real terms that we use. Makes it a little more fun.
And here's a Chaseon golden crab.
All right, pilots.
And more of that blue sponge that we've been seeing.
Small move.
Oh, is that 2 of them?
Yeah, you can put a small move in.
Yeah, I think there's 2 of them there.
Like
they might be mating.
She is holding on, or he is holding on.
Copy that.
Great.
Yeah, we might have interrupted.
It's the honeymoon suite.
Look at that. No wonder they weren't moving. They needed their do not disturb sign.
Go ahead, Nav.
You ready for ship move?
Okay, I am.
All right, 20 meters at 280.
All right, video. Pilot's clear when video's clear.
That's 20 meters, bearing 280, speed decimal 2.
Good copy.
And these types of observations are very important to learn more about the reproductive biology. And this is a commercially important species. The golden crab has a fishery that's
ROV nav.
much more inland and shallow than this, but it's important to note where these crabs are and how they use different types of habitat, and definitely about their reproductive biology, when they might be mating, where, and what kind of habitats they use. And it looks like we have a sea star on the right and a black coral on the left.
Go for sea star first.
Okay. Take it on lasers.
Sounds good.
I'd take a closer look at the sea star. We saw a similar color one yesterday, but I'm not sure if this is the same.
It doesn't look as thin, the fleshy material, but that might just be the way it's perched. Beautiful color. So it's interesting that we saw it yesterday on a coral mound, and we see it here, but we have not seen it on any previous dive. We saw several yesterday, or at least of this variety. It may not be the same species. Scott France commented that it's very snowy this morning, and it certainly is. That is the marine snow, the organic debris that is settling through the water column.
I'll try to hold this for a second video.
Which is the food for a lot of these filter feeding organisms, such as the corals and the sponges. Or at least
come in on the feet,
part of the
maybe?
food.
I think you got some zoom left.
You see the tube feet there at the end of the arm of this sea star.
Got some vibration, huh? Okay, pilot's clear when video's clear. I'll jump over to the black coral.
And here we have a Perianthropathes.
Yeah, you can come in.
Perianthropathes. And it might be close to the species Hirundelle. And these have had associate crabs in their
ROV nav bridge move complete.
Yeah, we've seen associates Galatheid crabs with this species or this genus other places in this expedition before, so when we scan down we might find some associates. That might be one.
Copy that video.
Beautiful view of the whole colony. Oh, there's a hermit crab. I think we've seen a hermit crab on every dive so far, maybe. At least one, usually many.
Okay, video, is there a different view of this species you needed, or the specimen?
Looks good, pilot, thanks.
Understood. All right. Keep moving here.
We have another octocoral coming up here, center screen, and a sponge.
You can frame them up, video. Watch, did you need a closer look of either of these or not?
Sure, that'd be great, thank you.
Okay, video come in.
We're going to get a closer look at each of these.
Ended, permission to put another one. Same thing, yeah. 20 meters,
yeah.
280.
Looks like another hermit crab associate on the right side. Not sure if this is Plumarella.
Go ahead, Nav.
Hey, ready for another move?
I'm ready.
20 meters at 280 degrees, decimal 2 knots.
Okay, 20 meters at 280, speed decimal 2.
Good job.
I have you here at 55 degrees, pilot.
Okay. All right. We can go over to the white sponge fan thing.
That's a different looking sponge than we've seen
bridge
before.
Move initiated.
Wow. Swiss cheese sponge.
This is Megan. I think this might actually be a bryozoan.
Oh, are you serious? Wow.
Yeah. We've seen some that look like this on the last expedition with this very reticulated pattern.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting, Megan.
That's beautiful.
It is. No wonder why it didn't look like any sponge we've seen before. It's not a sponge. So how common is it? Do you know, Megan?
I don't really know. I know we've seen this a few times, probably about this depth expedition in the Gulf of Mexico. But I don't think we've seen one this big.
Great. Would you know whether they're whether they've been found in this region before?
Video, on zoom out, get lasers on again.
I think so, but I'm not certain.
Lasers
I'm not
coming off.
quite familiar. That's one reason why I'm joining in, is to just get used to what kind of species we're seeing. And since it's pretty hard to ID these without actually seeing them under a microscope,
Yeah, which is true of a lot of the organisms that we see here.
Yeah, definitely. But I think we might have actually collected ones like this or this species the last expedition, so it would be cool to take a look at that.
I'd be there at 6.5
Okay,
degrees.
would you think that this is a good collection to make then?
I mean, I wouldn't say no. If anybody else agrees that we should make a collection of this.
Video, you can come wide.
Okay. Any nays about making a collection here? We'll need to let the ship know pretty quickly if we want to collect this.
Looks like there may be another one in the upper right, if that's the same thing.
Yeah, it does look like it. So either one would probably make a fine collection, whichever might be easier. But it sounds like we don't have any objections, so I'd say we can try to go ahead.
Certainly something different from what we have acquired to date.
Go ahead, Nav.
So Megan, what kind of characters would you look for under the microscope for a bryozoan to determine species?
I might push you back 10 meters.
It's typically based on zooid morphology, so
I'm only looking down
are
at 75.
A bit like corals in that they
that was only
now, Bridge, we're at an easy stop.
A lot smaller polyp.
No
that was only a 20-meter move, right?
Probably the skeletal morphology of the zooid.
If you start to overtake him,
this
I'll push
growth
back.
pattern, the reticulated pattern, is pretty characteristic as well, so that can help
Get
a
you
lot.
there at 80, pilot.
And really, all that's needed is a scope.
And sonar's clear, so there isn't any
really need to see the
danger either.
tissue
But
typically.
So the skeleton is more important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just need a little chip of it, or
verify. It's the same thing.
Fine, very jargony terms like cryptocysts and gymnocysts and things like that, and pores between the walls on the skeleton and how the zooids communicate with each other.
Uh-huh.
All right, watch it. You want to collect this? Is that correct?
And a lot
Yep, this is great. Thank you, pilot.
You can get mini Zeus on the right monitor.
Copy that.
And Sean can watch.
Do you mind watching my?
Well, so
yeah,
this would be a really cool collection.
Great. Well, then we can compare to the one that you found in the Gulf of Mexico also and see if it's the same species or something different. I know that I haven't seen it before. But then again, I didn't even know that it wasn't a sponge, so definitely need somebody who's more of an expert on this group to take a closer look.
Yeah, I'm definitely
taking
looking
control
forward
of Mini
to
Zeus pilot.
checking out all the collections of bryozoans you guys have made the last few expeditions that are in the Smithsonian.
Right.
Go visit or loan them out.
Coming on Mini Zeus and Zeus.
If it's a sponge, you might just be able to finger it.
Looking one that we collected a few dives ago.
Right. Yeah, that was very interesting. I'll be very intrigued to hear what you make of it when you get a chance to look at it.
Yeah, I'll have to let you know. The interesting thing is that a lot of the guides that I have, they don't really show the colony morphology. It's really just the zooids under SEM or scanning electron microscopy. And
I'm at 101.
It might actually be better to get with the scoop. It might be brittle. I'm not.
Yeah. Very brittle.
Yeah, pilots, did you hear that? That this might be pretty brittle and maybe the scoop would be better? Sorry, we didn't know that ahead of time.
Okay.
I was wondering if it was going to be brittle.
Yeah, I didn't think about it until just now, but I think the last one we collected like this was also with the scoop.
If you could get the scoop underneath it and just lift it up,
but one
you think it would
interesting thing
break
that
it into the scoop?
noticed on these dives is in the high current locations, there weren't very many bryozoans.
It looks like the base is up there on the northwest part of it.
The branching kind, which can move
starboard wing.
when there's a lot of movement of the water.
Oh, right.
This kind is more brittle.
Inboard.
It has a set shape and can't really move much. And I think that goes to show that there's not much water movement here.
Yeah, I can. I did bump that rock a second ago, and it was pretty fixed to the ground, but I can give it a second try.
I think it's just one giant.
We're just testing to see whether the rock might be loose enough to pick up the rock and not have to crush the bryozoan in the manipulator here.
Yeah, it is firmly planted to the ground. So.
Okay, that won't work. So going for the scoop.
You want me to come a little bit
and Iris pointed out that these are difficult to collect intact also because they're so delicate. So we'll see what we can do.
But even if it comes up broken, we know what it looks like. We've got some great stills, so just looking at the zoan morphology, we already know what the colony looks like.
Okay, so you can fill in the gaps and look at those finer details, even if it's fragmented a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. You gotta take the starboard wing and put it outboard.
Yeah. Thanks.
Megan, can you tell us a little bit about your position at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences?
Yeah, so I just started recently as the collections manager for non-molluscan invertebrates, which is kind of a mouthful. So I do a lot of things, curate the collection, so make sure that the preservatives are refilled and are new. We have a couple of interns as well, or a few interns. One of them standing right behind me.
I'm glad you all are with us today.
And what else do I do? A lot of digitization or databasing of the collection. So we've got a lot of lots, actually, specimen lots from the Duke Institute of Marine Sciences, University of North Carolina Institute of Marine Sciences, Duke, and the Charleston Museum. I think it's 9,500 lots that need a lot of care. So we've been slowly but surely working through those to make sure they're all good to go and databasing them.
I'm just going to have the ship bump a little backwards. I'm starting to lose visual detail.
Get online,
do you want me to try and lean further down?
So,
if you can, I don't think you have any.
I think it's really important to have these
with the
collections.
Copy.
That way we can learn a lot more about what's here in North Carolina and surrounding areas, and also in places like this.
So very true. That's great.
Coming out of Easy's partial?
Is look at associates. So I've been taking jars that are of, sponges or hydroids or other sort of things, and going into the jar and seeing what else is in there that's not just the major specimen. And there was one jar that was like 4 ounces. I tweeted about this. that actually had 13 different species of bryozoans on it, and it was a scleractinian coral skeleton.
Oh, wow.
Some bryozoans growing on it. 13 different species, so I think that just goes to show the importance of collections and how there's a lot more in collections than you think there might be.
I think that our sample data manager can attest to that with the number of associates she's pulled off of our samples that we've collected on this cruise so far. They've kept her up late at night.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I need to stay here way late just to make some more headway.
What if you came in from the right side to the left? You kind of scooped it like that, so you could actually see in both cameras. You know, you're blocking your whole view coming at it straight on.
And pilot, it's okay if we just get a piece of it instead of the whole thing. It'll be enough.
Oh. Yeah, that works. And it looks like there's quite a few colonies around this as well.
Video, come wide on mini Zeus, please. What if I just do this one?
You want me to follow you over?
Yeah.
And another thing I'll say while we're waiting on this collection is that one thing we're attempting to do is just get the word out about how much stuff we have in our collections here at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, especially in the non-molluscan invertebrate collection, that even though it's not online and not searchable, if you need something, just contact me and we can figure something out. We probably have it.
Great. Museums are so important for the taxonomy of all these organisms. It takes a lot of work to curate everything and figure out what you have and make it available to others.
We'll go port side.
Port side's ready to go. Ready for extension?
Yeah.
Coming out. We're going to be pushed back a little bit.
Mini Zeus down.
Coming down. Right, drawer coming in.
That was very brittle.
Yeah, great job, pilots. Looks like we got at least half of it into the bio box. So our first biology sample is this very interesting bryozoan.
You want to bring the starboard wing inboard?
And Megan, those leftover colonies that broke off, they'll still survive, won't they? They're still able to capture food and do their daily routine. They're just in a different location. Is that correct?
Yeah, they should be fine.
And John Reed pointed out that he collected a similar species with the Johnson sea link in 2002 on the Stetson Banks at 715 meters. And it was tentatively identified as membranifera. Sorry. Does that ring a bell, Megan? Membranifera?
Yeah, it does. I don't think it grows like that, though.
Starboard wing coming upward.
I'm looking in a guidebook of Floridian bryozoans right now, and there's one that grows with this morphology that's called Skyzilla zoon. I don't know if that's this. Again, I'd have to look at the zooid morphology, but it's possible. Membranifera grows in sort of a flat, sheet-like encrusting growth pattern, and typically, at least the one I'm more familiar with, is on kelp or sometimes encrusting directly on rocks. but typically it doesn't grow outwards or in that reticulated pattern.
Okay.
And it's much flatter and less calcified than this one seems to be.
Huh.
There you go.
I see you.
Hi, guys. This is John.
I still
Hi, John.
have
How are
the
you?
other
What we
101
have,
degrees, so
I have a picture of it. The one we collected in 2002 with the submersible looks just like this one. It was like fan shaped, and it looks like looks identical from visually, without a microscope. So after we've collected it, it's in our museum, but no specialist had looked at it. So it might be interesting to compare the two.
Yeah, that might be something that Megan wants to request.
700 meters.
Okay, and now we are just shy of 1,000 meters, so a bit deeper.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to look because I'm sure there's so many things in collections that are misidentified or identified to what, was generally thought of in the past, but have different names now, so who knows?
Yeah.
And earlier we took a rock sample. I was thinking we were already at the bay. I was just so excited to see rocks.
Yes.
Probably was hasty, but as my colleagues have confirmed that it's never too hasty to grab a rock anyway. But it is likely more to be this crust of the seabed here that is long sitting sediments like this often become encrusted by the mineral matter, the content of the dissolved minerals in the seawater, and they precipitate out a solution and make this crust
So it's
on
pretty flat, so yeah, I suggest
the seabed. So it'll be interesting to see what the composition of that matrix that is binding the particles together. I was surprised to see how solid that rock was.
Can we take a look at this coral under the rock, the red?
I'm ready.
Red
Video coming on a red coral.
Might be a coral. It might be something else.
30 meters at 280.
Thinking it might be Anthomastus or pseudo-Anthomastus.
So I appreciate your comments, Scott Harris at the College of Charleston and Jason Chater at the U.S. Geological Survey in Woods Hole. So stay tuned in and please call in if you want to discuss the rocks. Rocks are not my forte. I'm a geologist, but I do other things. So I'm happy to have some input and guidance. Tell me which rocks you want. Not that we can collect every rock we see, of course. That's what we really want.
And every coral and every sponge. But we have limited time and space.
In fact, we may want to start motoring towards
Great, thanks, pilot.
The incline. Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Great, thanks, pilots.
And we're at a water depth of just about 1,000 meters. And we're moving toward the base of an ascent. I don't want to say a cliff because we don't know what the angle of the wall will be. We know that in places it'll be over 40 degrees. And we're hoping to find some vertical portions to that wall. And it's about 100 meters of relief from where we are now to its top. And then the top, based on our multi-beam sonar maps, is very, very flat. And we are likely looking at the edge of the nearly flat-lying sedimentary rocks of this region that make up part of this very broad expanse called the Blake Plateau, and we're on the northern extent of the Blake Plateau.
Hey, let's snap on white subject down here just to see what this is. Oh, it's
another one of those bryozoans.
Yeah, so we're finding quite a bit of them. It's a good thing we now know what they are. Thank you, Megan. That was Megan McCullough. And Megan, you are, I'm looking
North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences.
Yes.
Ooh, it looks like
for calling in.
Oh, the white guy there, is that, yeah, chitin. Thanks. That was Annie who came up with that. She's probably seen video of everything on the seafloor by now after being on this ship for 2 years worth of expeditions.
And she writes the captions, so she actually learns what these organisms are.
That's right. And there's a squat lobster, a red guy on the right underside of the rock. Might be the genus Munida. I don't see too many chitons down here. That's interesting. We've got a shrimp on the sediment surface to the right of the rock.
Hi everyone, this is the front row speaking. We are from the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration. We're in charge of the ROVs. Not only do we build them, but we also maintain and operate them. And as you can see, we're piloting them right now. Our pilot today is
Levi Yunwa.
Sitting navigator is Sean Kennison.
Sitting co-pilot is Lars Murphy.
Over on the right side, Bob Knott on video.
And back in the back row, Annie White clipping. And we're all with the Global Foundation for Ocean Exploration.
Thanks, guys. And lady.
You can come in. Go for the small yellow.
And looks like we have an octocoral here. Small yellow octocoral. Maybe an associate towards the base. I don't know if Scott France is joining us this morning. I haven't heard from him yet today.
Is there any more Zoom video or not? Okay. Sounds good. Keep moving forward.
And Tina Moldasova, who's joining us from Moscow, says it's 5:15 their time, p.m.
You'd snap on them if you wanted.
So it's the end of the day for them, the beginning of the day for us. Yeah, if we could get a good look at each of those fishes, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
It's a rat tail.
I'm getting closer video.
Nizumia species. I will let the ichthyologist tell us, guess which species this might be. And this is one that I am not familiar with at all, this fish. It looks brochulid-like to me, but could be totally. With the chin barbels and the sort of stumpy face. Which would be hake, right? Not as far as I know, but okay. I don't know either. Or would that be more cusk eel-ish?
Thanks, pilot. That's good for idea.
Yeah.
Understood.
I think cusk eel.
Video when you're clear. Pilot's clear.
And you see
Where are
by
the ichthyologists today?
You see by the lasers that was only 10 centimeters in length, so they're quite small.
Wow, several of them around, and then a really large Bathypathes in the back with, looks like Gastroptychus maybe, Anamurin squat lobsters. At least 2 of them I can see from here.
2, 3, 4.
Wow,
like 4.
Yeah, 4.
Taking advantage of anything that can put them up in the current and help to capture food. It's beautiful.
Lasers are off.
That is gorgeous.
I don't think we've seen one so decorated.
Or so large.
Or so,
yes.
Yeah, this is really big.
I think I've seen.
Yep. And so it looks like it's just growing right out of the sediment, but I imagine that there's probably a little rock.
Yeah, well, plenty of that
surface underneath.
Crust is probably just beneath. This is quite a thick drape of the sediment here.
I imagine since those chirostylids are mostly skinny legs, it doesn't add a lot of weight to the...
Although it's fallen over, kind of.
Yeah.
I'd be there at 0 degrees.
Copy that. Keep moving here.
Oh, and Tina points out that this might be Telepathes instead of Bathypathes, but we don't know how to tell them apart. And especially without a sample, but that's way too big of a coral to try to take a sample of. I think we'd destroy it. Yeah, we can't tell them apart from photos. We have another octocoral coming up here. I think, anyway.
Video snap.
Or is this a sponge?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think it is a sponge.
Like a clatorizing.
Yeah, so it might be
carnivorous sponge.
One of the carnivorous sponges. So they have some little hooks, right? And that's how they catch organisms that are coming by?
So far as I know, yeah.
So they do more than just filter feed like most of the sponges we're familiar with. And Tina points out that there are some caprellid amphipods, which are skeleton shrimp, on this sponge. Haven't seen them yet,
yeah, I don't see them.
She's got a very good eye.
Usually they're pretty obvious because they're swinging around from their back legs, but
Let me get closer video.
That is awesome.
Looks like a Christmas tree with ornaments on it or something.
Yeah, it does look like a Christmas tree with ornaments.
Oh, it's got quite a bit going on. All right, video, is there a different shot you wanted with the specimen?
Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Did we laser it? I don't remember.
Yeah, we could put lasers by the base.
Yeah, that would be a good idea. Try to get a size on it.
I don't know.
maybe 30 centimeters long or something.
Yeah, I would say it probably is about 30 centimeters.
30. It's impressive.
Tall. Yeah, there are some of these carnivorous sponges that are teeny tiny. We saw one yesterday, or the day before maybe, got just a very quick glimpse of one, but this is a lot easier to spot.
Probably get a move going, I think. What's the average pace today, Sean? What's the average pace we need to do?
Stand by and figure that out.
I have you at 6 meters.
So we're traversing across a flatter plain here with some rocks and some, looks like more bathy-pathies.
Put another 30 meters in. You guys ready?
We're still at about 1,000 meters depth, water depth. And it looks like another black coral here.
I'm ready.
All right, 30 meters at 280 degrees at decimal 2 knots.
That's 30 meters at 280, speed decimal 2.
Yeah.
Video you can snap on this subject too. Oh, actually, did you need a close look at this one? Have you seen this one?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay.
So this looks like a bathy-pathies, but it has a different coloration than we've seen,
and the polyps look longer.
Yeah.
Probably not using the right terminology on that, but drapier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Coming on the base video.
I forget, is this one of the ones we don't... Oh no, the last one we saw had a bunch of the crabs on it.
Mm-hmm.
These smaller ones I don't remember seeing many associates on.
Yeah.
I don't see anything on this one yet, at least.
No.
Is that dark worm-looking thing? Is that part of the skeleton? Or is that a...
Oh.
See that?
Oh, yeah, you're right. There's a worm looks like it's just right along the main skeleton.
Yeah, that's why the skeleton looks more purple. Tim Schenk was pointing out that the skeleton looked thickened and purple. It looks like that might be a polychaete worm of some type. I don't know if unicids are associates of these. I don't know if Tim has ever seen anything like that.
As I'm saying, we don't see associates. The pilot's like, oh yeah, there's a worm.
The pilots are so good at this.
Better at spotting things.
It's so well camouflaged. It just looks like the skeleton.
It really does look like the skeleton. That's...
But need to maintain about 0.06, which should be an issue.
All right. Pilot's clear when video is clear.
Another reason to be thankful for the pilot, co-pilot, and nav for
it's a
spotting
tiny
things.
little sea star too, but if
yeah.
that's okay, we can keep going.
We could snap on the small star for a second. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Little baby guy.
Or maybe it's just a brittle star. Yeah, it's a brittle star, but we have not seen that many of them yet.
Yeah, that one looks different.
Holding onto a rock. Not that the current's very strong here, but we do see them often across the rocks. But also we usually see them on the muds, and we haven't seen very many. Maybe we're just not looking close enough. They're fairly small.
All right.
And we certainly see them wrapped up in some of the corals. Not today at this point, but I suspect we'll see more as we rise up on the scarp itself.
And Tim Schenk from Woods Hole Oceanographic said that he hasn't seen a polychaete quite as long or large on a bathypathes before, so very interesting observation, and I wouldn't have even seen it without a closer zoom. I just figured it was the skeleton. So good eye pilots and good eye Tim.
Just a whitefish. Snap on it, see if it's of interest.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those grumpy ones.
Yeah, one of the grumpy looking fish.
I have you there, 45 pounds.
So many of them look grumpy.
Well, we're waking them up for their nap.
That is true. You shined a flashlight in my eyeball when I was sleeping and probably looked grumpy.
Very bright flashlight.
I was probably looking pretty grumpy when I got up at 5 to look at the new bathy maps this morning as well.